Alright, I'm gonna come out and say it right at the start of the video, and yet I'll still get comments from people telling me how great Bloodborne is and I'm just a tasteless idiot, but my disappointment of Bloodborne does not mean that it's a bad game. I need to stress that. It's more a case of unmet expectations, and the game just not clicking with me for whatever reason. So in this video, I will dive into the reasons why Bloodborne felt lackluster to me. As I do in all my reviews, I have to give context on my Bloodborne experience. I started my FromSoft journey a year ago with Sekiro, but my Souls journey began just 2 months ago playing Demon Souls and then Dark Souls 1 to 3 in order. Over that time, I've seen numerous YouTube comments, chats on Twitch, and tweets on Twitter talking about how Bloodborne is peak. I'm a former Destiny 2 content creator, and more than a few folks have entered my chat saying that Bloodborne is their second most played game behind Destiny 2, that they play it over and over because of how great it is, how satisfying the combat is, and to be honest, I can absolutely see the appeal of this game. Hell, this is even the game that I pictured when I heard people talk about the Soulsborne games before I played them. This was the aesthetic that was in my mind. And I think there's a good reason for that, because the vibes in this game are unmatched. I'll get more into it later, but my god, the world building, aesthetic, and artistic design in Bloodborne is second to none. With most games I play, I know very little about them before I play them. Sure, I'll see discourse or be told by people in my chat to play such and such game, but I never go out looking for info on them. I love to experience classics through a relatively unspoiled perspective. It makes the experience that much sweeter. And with Bloodborne, I did the same. I knew very little about it, but one thing I knew is how many people adore this game and say it's the best in all the Soulsborne series. And though I absolutely loved Dark Souls 1 to 3, my favorite game is still Sekiro. So in my mind, I thought, well, I adored the other FromSoft game that differed from the Souls formula, so I bet the same will hold true for Bloodborne. Plus, I'd also heard how the gameplay was much more aggressive than the others, which again, totally appeals to me. I loved making balls out aggressive builds in Destiny 2. Hades 1 and 2, I loved to be a glass cannon. So this seemed like a game tailor-made for me. The coolest aesthetic in the series combined with gameplay mechanics that reward all-out aggression versus being passive, what's not to love? Well, sadly, quite a bit it turns out. The more I played Bloodborne, the less I found it clicked with me, despite on paper being everything that I should enjoy. One thing I do a great job of in life is keeping low expectations. You can't be disappointed if you keep the bar on the floor. Unfortunately, in this case, I let myself buy into the hype only to come away with an unsatisfactory experience. This could be on me as much as the game, I really don't know, but in this review, I'll try and unpack the elements that didn't click with me, while also trying to highlight the things that this game does objectively well. So let's jump into it. So again, sorry for the insanely long preamble, but I think it's important context to understand where my head was at going into Bloodborne. So from the jump, I was very excited to play this game. I chose the saw cleaver because I wanted the authentic Bloodborne experience, and what could be more authentic than using the weapon on the box art? Literally one of the coolest box arts for a game I've ever seen. Everything about the aesthetic of this game is cool as hell, and you're thrown into the mix right out the gate. There's some weirdo doing experiments on you, and you fall into a nightmare, only to wake up and get destroyed by a werewolf. After a bit of messing around, you find yourself in Old Yarnum. Exploring the game's first area, I was astounded by its Lovecraftian-inspired world design. Everything about the town was perfectly structured. The creepy townsfolks that you fight, the disturbing townfolks NPC that you interact with by knocking on doors, the werewolves, the architecture. Everything just fit. By far my favorite aspect of Bloodborne is the world design, followed closely by its sound design. I've praised the sound design in other Souls games, but I don't think any have done it better than Bloodborne. So often I was just wandering around an area listening to the footsteps and the ambient noise. Sometimes there was a baby crying, sometimes a bell ringing in the distance or thunder showers. The audio in this game is some of the best in all of gaming. Like, my god, so often I was just amazed by how good something sounded. The creaking of a gate or dungeon door opening. It was all just so well done and helped to add to the already impressive world building. Maybe this is another factor that led to my disappointment. The world of this game is so fucking cool. Like, I hope they make a Bloodborne 2 or something in this universe. Perhaps Duskbloods will be that game, but something to go back to old Yharnam or a Yharnam adjacent setting, because it's just too damn cool, dude. But as I said, maybe this is part of my disappointment, because as much as I love it, as I often say in my videos, for me, gameplay is king. I played tons of games without stories and not given a shit. I recently picked up Slay the Spire and I have 40 hours in it already, and it has no story that I can tell, but it's really fun to play. I've also played games with stories that I couldn't tell you the first thing about what is happening because I just want to play the damn game. I've watched Mossbag videos on Hollow Knight and Silksong, and while I appreciate the story it's telling, 5 minutes after I watch those videos, I cannot tell you what the hell is going on. It's just something that doesn't register with my brain for whatever reason, but gameplay does. I could play Hollow Knight and Silksong over and over just because they feel so damn fun and satisfying to play. Which brings me to my first gripe with Bloodborne, the gameplay. Again, I should love this, and there are parts that I do, but there are also parts that frustrate me. As ever in a Souls game, there's lots of camera jank, but that is just something that is inherent with Souls games. But what frustrated me throughout my whole playthrough was the inconsistency. In the Souls games, when you dodge, you roll, whether you're locked on or not. In Bloodborne, if you're locked on, you jump step back and forth or side to side. If you unlock the camera, you can then roll away. Sure, you may say skill issue, but I mean, I beat a lot of the hardest bosses in this game in 2 tries or less, so I don't think it's really that. It's just how it feels to play, and I didn't find that it felt good a lot of the time. I would hit R3 to unlock and then roll, but I don't know if there's a slight cooldown or maybe I double pressed it or what, but for whatever reason I would stay locked on and then try and roll out of a bad spot only to jump backwards and still get hit. I don't mind dying when I fuck up, at all. I can own my mistakes. I often know as soon as I hit the attack button and see an attack incoming that I fucked up and I'm gonna take some damage. I've been playing video games for 30 years, I'm pretty seasoned. This doesn't bother me. You learn and do better the next attempt. What does bother me is dying to jank. And even though I didn't die that much in this game, a lot of the time when I did, I felt it was more due to game jank than my improper inputs, simply because of the different movement system. Another cool feature that they added in Bloodborne is the parry system with the pistol. I thought this was so cool because it is. It's fucking dope as hell. I love it. However, the implementation is inconsistent and that feels bad to me. Predictability in this sense is a good thing. When I hit this button, it does this. Well, in Bloodborne, it's not intrinsically known when you can and can't parry. Sure, veterans of the game may know what you can and can't parry because they have a ton of experience, but for a first-time player, this felt bad. I would shoot at what I thought was the correct timing to get a stun, only to still get nailed. But the problem is, I couldn't tell if this was user error or simply an unparryable attack. The game does not give any feedback, at least from what I can tell, of what attacks you can parry and what ones you cannot. In Sekiro, there are unparryable attacks, but they have some type of animation indicating that to you. The Makiri counter action will have a red symbol pop up that tells you to Makiri, or sometimes I think it means jump, but regardless, this indicates you to not parry this attack. Sure, you may get hit, but as you practice on that enemy, you'll know after an attempt or two what you're supposed to do. Whether or not you execute is on you, but at least you have the knowledge to know what you should be doing. Throughout my entire playthrough, I never felt like I knew what I could parry, or when I should be dodging to avoid an attack. The game never really teaches you that. Or if it does, I never picked up on it, and again, as a seasoned gamer, I think that's pretty bad game design if I can put almost 40 hours into a game and not fully understand its combat system. I can usually pick up on that stuff quite quickly, and some FromSoft devs may even agree with me because I just pointed out they did a great job fixing that in Sekiro. Speaking of Sekiro, it has a parry system which feels incredible and responsive. In Bloodborne, your parry is done with your pistol, and there's an animation delay to your parry because you have to draw your weapon and fire it to get said parry. This often leads to you missing a parry or still taking damage but still getting the stun, but then what happens is because you got hit, you can't follow up and do your visceral attack. This feels bad because on a boss you're new to, you can't really rely on reactions to try and beat it. You have to resort to memorizing its attack patterns. Now, I actually enjoy learning a boss's movesets and how best to counter every attack. I find it very satisfying, and I think no game does this better than Sekiro, so it's no coincidence that Sekiro is my favorite game as a result. I like it so much because it feels so good to play, and that's an aspect to gaming that rates very highly for me. I just find it the most fun. But Sekiro had the advantage of you only having one weapon, so the game could be balanced around that. In the Souls games, I just brute forced a lot of bosses through skill and trial and error and beat them in an attempt or two, where in Sekiro, that is damn near impossible on a first playthrough. The game forces you to learn. In Bloodborne, I found this song and dance lackluster because of the aforementioned lack of teaching that the game does for you. You don't intrinsically know which attacks you can and can't parry, and you often can't react quickly enough thanks to the pistol animation to learn it early, so on many bosses, I kinda just played a Dark Souls style of combat where I would evade attack until the boss was dead. As a result of what I just talked about, one of my favorite bosses was actually Bloodstarved Beast because I forced myself to learn the boss encounter more than any other. I had to learn how to beat it because I practiced over and over without using heals. Then when I did my first real attempt at killing it, I had the moveset down and it felt really satisfying to beat because, like in Sekiro, I'd actually learned its tells and how to deal with each attack. It was very satisfying. But why only do this with Bloodstarved Beast and not the other bosses in the game if you find it so satisfying? Well, that brings us neatly to maybe my biggest gripe with the game, Blood Vials. I hated finite healing systems in Demon's Souls, and I hate it here. I still think Dark Souls 2 does it the best with Estus amount and potency being able to be upgraded, and having the addition of life gems. So you get the best of both worlds. Demon's Souls, it made the start of the game annoying as shit, but then because the limits weren't really capped, I mean they're capped at 99, but come on, it made the end of the game a friggin' cakewalk, which also felt lame. At least in Bloodborne, they're limited to 20. Or later in the game, you can spec into it and increase the amount of vials you can hold, but it still isn't that many more. The system still sucks ass. I'll probably make an entire video on the topic talking about all the ways it's bad, but for the sake of brevity, let's just say that I did not like this system. Early in the game, I had to grind these to keep doing attempts on Father Gascoigne. This is not fun or engaging in any way. Going to a spawn point to farm 2 dudes over and over again for a few blood vials at a time is not enjoyable in the slightest. I detest pointless grinds in games, and this was a pointless grind. I just spent like 500 words talking about how much I love learning boss fights and mastering their movesets to overcome them. Well, a finite healing system directly punishes you for this. You want to die over and over on this boss? Well, to get the luxury of this, you'll have to interrupt your attempts every 5 minutes to go farm blood vials for 20 minutes. It felt so bad and like such a waste of time because it is. And to anyone saying get good, bitch, I'm trying to learn this fight in depth so that I can beat him. On top of the fact that, as I mentioned, the combat on paper being good, but in practice, not doing a good job of teaching the player, you have to learn somehow. And a great way to learn would be doing attempts on Gascoigne over and over. But if you want to do that, then it's going to cost you blood vials. Also, I know there is some dungeon code you can do for infinite blood echoes or something, but cheesing your way to get unlimited healing in a way the game designers didn't intend is not a proper fix. The system is bad, and people doing that to not have to engage with blood vial farming is proof. So after I beat Gascoigne, who I pushed to phase 3 in my first attempt by the way, I learned my lesson. So when I got to Bloodstarved Beast, I would just do attempts over and over without healing, so that when I did my real attempt, I wouldn't have to waste blood vials. In my Dark Souls 3 playthrough, when I beat Sister Fried, I had a dogshit start to that fight. I took a ton of damage on the first phase because I was being stupid, took hits early in the third phase, but I overcame the fight on that attempt and it felt so good. People in my chat even commented on how they liked that I would keep going on a fight, even if I took damage early, and how they had friends who would just give up right away and start over. It's such a satisfying feeling being able to battle back from being one-shot to overcome a tough boss. You fought back from the brink and won, and it has happened to me in many games and it always feels good. In Bloodborne, it actively discourages this type of gameplay. You take damage early, well you may as well pack it in and try again because it doesn't make sense to waste 3 precious blood vials before you've done any damage to the boss. And that is just the smart thing to do, but doing the smart thing doesn't feel good when you're doing it. I want to battle through, and also many of the bosses in this game have second and third phases with different attack patterns, so you may have the first couple phases down and then you gotta get to the third phase to learn it. Well, if you take too much damage in the first couple, then you'll probably just reset before you see phase 3. What I'm saying is it's antithetical to experimentation, and that's why I despise this. I said the same thing in Destiny 2 years ago when it cost Glimmer, a finite currency, to change mods and artifact mods on your character. It punished you for experimentation and promoted just playing the same build over and over. And it's the same formula here. The game is punishing you for being bad rather than trying to encourage you to get better. And I said it with Dark Souls 2 and how you lose part of your health bar on death. You should be rewarded for playing well, not punished for playing poorly. It's what pushes people away from your games. Like in Dark Souls 1, you got humanity as you slayed out, and if you died, you lost some, but if you didn't die, you had tons of humanity. This system more rewarded you for playing well, rather than punishing you for playing poorly. Sure, humanity can help the rich get richer, but it isn't actively punishing you, as getting 10 Estus from a bonfire is still pretty solid. Again, I would happily attempt bosses over and over in those games, because my Estus always refilled, but in this, I felt overly punished for trying to beat a hard boss. Dark Beast Parl I faced pretty early in the game and went through the same thing. I had to use my vials very sparingly while I tried to learn the fight, and then once I felt competent enough, I only used them if I thought I had a shot at beating him. This is piss poor game design. I just mentioned bonfires, so that's another, albeit small, point of contention. The lamps are cool, but the system sucks. You can't rest at them or fast travel from them. You have to do it from the safe hub like in Demon Souls. So when you're trying to farm blood vials, which sucks ass, you can't even just rest and reset the instance. You have to go to the lamp, fast travel back to the Hunter's Nightmare, go to a gravestone, then fast travel back. Needlessly tedious when a better system exists. Sure, there may be lore reasons for traveling back and forth, but it doesn't make it feel better to play. And as I have established, I'm a gameplay first gamer. On top of this, a lot of the time the location that you fast travel to doesn't match up with the description in the gravestone, so I often had no idea where I was supposed to go back to. For the record, I never had this problem in any of the other Souls games. I would have to guess, get it wrong, travel back to the nightmare, try another one, and hopefully get it right. I learned after a time or two, obviously, but the initial time that you unlock a lamp, you don't know the name of the location you just unlocked, so that was quite annoying. So while we're ranting about tedium, let's talk about the most mind-numbing part of Bloodborne, the Chalice dungeons. Again, I'm a former Destiny 2 player. I have grinded thousands of hours on meaningless content, but there was at least a small carrot to chase during that grind. What the fuck is the point of these Chalice dungeons? To get more resources to unlock more dungeons just to do it some more? Sure, I think I got a unique weapon and maybe a unique armor set. I fought maybe one unique boss out of over a dozen. They are all just recycled bosses from the main game, sometimes numerous times. I'm not against reusing assets, but reusing bosses in dungeons was just dumb because how about you just make less dungeons? The concept of them is neat, but the execution is terrible. They're all formulaic to explore, so after you've seen 2 or 3, you've seen them all. After the first couple, they just feel so repetitive, and I was hoping that they might have some cool secret or a new boss, but nope, just kept being the same old shit. Before I finished the game, I was going to grind the rest out on stream, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I think I did most of them, but I just couldn't bear it any longer. I respect my time too much. I would rather play a roguelite off stream or work on a YouTube video or do anything else than grind those pieces of shit out. They were so unsatisfying to play. On the contrary, exploring the world of Yharnam and beyond felt so satisfying because the world building is just so good. I could explore the levels in the games for hours. It felt fun to do. The dungeons, there was no fun to be had. The more I played them, the more they irritated me. I'm pretty OCD by nature, so for me to not do them all and still go and make my review says a lot. I like to experience all of what the game has to offer before giving my thoughts on it, or at least all of what I know I can play. But with how formulaic and boring they are, I just couldn't bring myself to do it any longer. And I think that actually says more about how shit they are than if I had actually finished all of them and came to the same conclusion. So from the game's worst element, we go to the most disappointing element, and that for me was the bosses. Again, I had heard how epic this game was. Peakborn, Bloodborne is so peak, wait till you play Bloodborne. I was excited to take on some truly epic bosses, but I came away from the game with them feeling extremely lackluster. It's not to say they were all bad, I definitely enjoyed some of them, but as I mentioned, even the enjoyment was tempered because of the method with which I beat them. Because of blood vials, I often brute forced them rather than mastered them. Vicar Amelia, I used Molotovs to beat. Obviously, I also fought them, but near the end of the fight, I didn't want to risk getting hit, so I just used what I had available to cheese the fight to a degree. Abritas, daughter of the cosmos, I used beast pellets and bolt paper in her final phase because on my attempt before, she killed me with a wild attack in that final phase. So rather than trying to learn how to counter that, I just killed it before it could do it to me. While some people just want to kill a boss so they can progress the game, I play these games to fight fun bosses and learn the boss fights. People drag people who like FromSoft games and treat them as a boss rush. I am those people. People can like games for different reasons, and those reasons are all valid. I see why people are enamored with Bloodborne. The world they created is second to none. And while I haven't watched any lore videos, I'm sure the lore and story is also cool as hell, as are all the stories in all the FromSoft games. But I do not play them for that. I play them to fight cool bosses. So even though beast blood pellets and bolt or fire paper is a tool that the game gives you to help you when you're stuck, to use in exact situations that I use them in, it didn't make me feel good to do it. I don't like to use summons, I don't like to buff my weapons. I'm glad those systems exist to help people who need a helping hand, and by all means, if it's in the game, it's fair game to leverage any game system to help you beat a boss. That's literally the point, the developers added them for a reason. Personally, I do not like using them to overcome bosses, but I did it just because the alternative was using a ton of blood vials while I learnt the fight, and the thought of having to farm more of those just pissed me off. And on top of that, I already talked about how unintuitive learning a lot of these fights was, so I just wanted to kill the boss at that point. In Silksong, I beat Lace 2.0 on my first playthrough without using any tools. I know I could have beat the fight so much quicker if I had, but I just loved the fight so much, I just wanted to enjoy the duel. It was such a satisfying fight to learn, but that was a total arbitrary decision by me to not allow myself to use tools. The game didn't force me, but when I enjoy something, I want to get the most out of it, and that fight, I just wanted to keep doing over and over. Some people just want it to be done and to move on, and that's okay, but that's not me. So with the rest of the boss roster, I think that is another reason I found them lackluster, because I didn't fully engage with them. And while the bosses may look cool and have a lot of aura, I think by and large, they aren't that great to play against. In the fights that I probably would have loved, like Lady Maria, I beat her on my second try because, again, resource management. Where Sister Freed, I kept fighting because I wanted to have that fight down. Sure, it was also because I had to get good, but I could have played passively and beat her much earlier. But I wanted to play aggressively and learn every opening, learn how to beat her properly and not just overcome her. And that is the feeling I had with like every boss in the game. The final two bosses, Gehrman and the Moon Presence, I beat both on the second try, just resorting to somewhat cheesy tactics and avoiding damage and only hitting when safe. But that isn't satisfying to me. Orphan of Kos was actually a decently fun fight for me because the first phase lets you engage with the parry mechanic more than most bosses in the game. Again, the combat system on paper is great. Parries and viscerals, so cool, but in practice, it was underutilized and that was disappointing to me. I also thought the game had too many beast bosses, but that could be for lore reasons, and I'm not inherently a beast boss hater. I love Guardian Ape, and I'm a rare Demon of Hatred lover as well, so FromSoft can make good beast bosses. I just found the ones in this game weren't that fun, and they were plentiful. The game also had some outright stinker bosses like Rom the Vacuous Spider. What a horribly boring fight, and then they bring him back in a dungeon. Like bro, come on. I can't overstate how much I hated the dungeons. The game would have literally been better with less content. Addition by subtraction. Make 4 cool curated dungeons and they would have been so much better than 20 plus repetitive derivative dungeons to draw out playtime. This is why it's only a 20-hour game argument is so stupid and anti-art. My save file has 40 hours on Bloodborne, but the PS homepage says 35. I do keep the game open while I go eat on stream, so let's say my playtime was around 35 hours. I would have enjoyed this game so much more if I played it for 30 hours and didn't engage in the dungeon system at all. But again, the length of a game discussion can be a whole topic for a whole different video. So while some may see these as weak complaints and absolutely disagree with me, they are my complaints because I didn't enjoy those aspects of the game, and gaming reviews are nothing more than one person's subjective opinions on a game. Some things are objective, like this game objectively has incredible sound design. You cannot say it's bad because it just isn't. But my opinion, my subjective take, is also that the world is cool as fuck. The moon cycles, the dark brooding atmosphere, while some people may not enjoy that, I sure as hell did. I think it's probably my favorite world design of any of the games that I've played so far. I didn't mention enemy variety, but again, it was top tier as it is in all their games. I also had a chatter, shout out DJ Legacy, who helped me in the early game so I didn't miss NPC quests and stuff. What a blessing. So many cool quests and moments that I would have missed without his input. You can miss multiple areas in this game without realizing, including Canehurst Castle. I love that about FromSoft games. They encourage you to engage with the game so deeply, so I'm super happy that I got to see these areas thanks to help from my chat. I also almost missed the Lawrence the Vicar fight in the DLC. Again, huge shout out to my chat for looking out. There are absolutely things to love in this game, and I see why people do. But for all the reasons that I like to play these games, that is why I walked away disappointed. The unintuitive game design, the underwhelming boss fights, the finite healing system. These elements all combine to make Bloodborne a disappointing experience for me, but again, that is just because my expectations did not match reality. Funnily enough, the 30 FPS, while jarring, is fine. The visuals still hold up over 10 years later. It's a testament to the fact that artistic design and theming is far more important than visual fidelity. And hopefully these AAA execs start to realize that and stop bloating game dev timelines and budgets to insane degrees just to make shadows look more realistic. Real gamers don't care, bro. Anyways, yet again, another topic for another video. I have rambled on for over 10 pages at this point, so I should probably wrap it up. In summary, while I see why Bloodborne is beloved, it just isn't for me. The same way I love Sekiro and others don't. We all have different tastes, and that's okay. I'm glad I got to experience it, and I'm looking forward to my next FromSoft game, Elden Ring, so be sure to come check me out on Twitch at ItSizzle7 as I play through that for the first time. Now that I have been disappointed by a much hyped FromSoft title, I'm hoping Elden Ring actually lives up to the expectations I have in my mind. Time will tell. Anyways, that's it for the video. Leave your thoughts on Bloodborne down below. I'm genuinely curious to hear them. Like and sub if you enjoyed the video, and lastly, thanks so much for watching to the end if you're still here. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.